Friends, welcome into another edition of the Soccer Tejas podcast. I'm Alex Parra. It's always an honor and a pleasure, and we thank you for spending hopefully the whole time that we're on. It sometimes goes over an hour, by the way, or at least a few minutes, and we really appreciate you being part of the Soccer Tejas family. But it's a family, and it's not just Uncle Alex. That would be too boring. You see on screen, I guess we're all co-hosts of the Soccer Tejas podcast. We're all equal contributors, maybe with a lot more knowledge, the two that are to my left. Let's start with our far left, depending on how you're looking at it. We welcome the one and only, and by the way, when we record today, it's St. Patty's Day. Laura, I see a lot of orange, not a lot of green, but welcome in. How are you? Good day, good night. How are you?
Good day, good night. It's probably good night already because the sun is not out anymore. But if you guys are listening to us in the morning, then good morning. No green. I actually forgot. I know that you're supposed to wear green, or if not, they'll pinch you. I remember that they used to pinch me in elementary, so I'll pinch myself. But no, I mean, Atlético Nacional, that's my team, so I always have some part of green within me, always in my blood. So that's my excuse of wearing green.
Well, tell us about your orange. You're repping the Dash and Dynamo FC. I love the look. I'm a little jealous. You don't want to see what I'm wearing.
This is old. I got this a long time ago. It's from that brand. It's a local brand. I forget the name of it. I think it's like Sam or something like that. I don't know. But I really liked it because it has both, and it rarely it's either the Dynamo or the Dash, and I really liked it. And I love hoodies, so I bought it a couple years ago, even though both teams lost. But so I didn't think this outfit through. Now that I think about it, but
Well, at least it reminds me of two of the teams that we'll be talking about on this podcast. So, Laura, it's always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for joining us and all of your expertise and knowledge. Speaking of expertise and knowledge, you see him in the center of the screen today. Also, the one and only. We welcome in Victor Araiza. Victor, how are you, sir? Good afternoon, good day, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, good. Wherever you may be listening to us, good morning, afternoon, night, whatever it is. Always a pleasure to be here with you, Alex, with Laura as well, who I have to thank for smuggling me in some Colombian coffee.
Oh,
it's been a treat, and I will add this for those of at least the hardcore Dynamo and Dash fans. Laura would not want to be confused as an Austin FC sympathizer, which is why she avoids all green.
I'll never avoid all green. I'm from Nacional, and that's my first love and the biggest love of my life in soccer, Atlético Nacional.
I'm glad she's clarifying. Victor, I thought you were going to talk about maybe having some green beer to drink on St. Patty's Day. Instead of Colombian cafe, but
no, because you made us work, Alex, so we couldn't do any of that.
Hey, it might make for a better show. Who knows? Let's just put it that way. Maybe it's on the table for the future. But we welcome in Victor, we welcome in Laura, and we welcome you, friends that are joining us and that have followed us. We appreciate the follows we get. I actually have people that say, "Hey, I'm halfway through the podcast." And that means they're watching, they're listening, and we really, really do appreciate it. But let's start with a start of a new NWSL season. We had the opportunity, all three of us, to be present as we presented the Houston Dash taking on the Washington Spirit, Shell Energy Stadium, this past Friday, the 14th. That was our first step into the NWSL season. And Laura, just in general terms, let's talk about the match, the Dash, the Spirit. Your take on what you saw, on what we maybe didn't see. But it was the start of our coverage on Deportes Nation, the official Spanish language broadcaster of the Houston Dash. But what are your thoughts of that first match for Houston and, of course, for the Washington Spirit?
Honestly, I think that the Dash could have at least tied the game. It was unfortunate, honestly. One of the goals was just, those mistakes that little mistakes will cause that. But I think that the game was very entertaining. It was very back and forth. The Dash had opportunities really to be up even in the score. They came out fighting, and unfortunately, the rival was the one that found the back of the net before they did. And then from there was playing a catch-up game, right? But I think that they showed a lot of grit, a lot of passion, a lot of speed, which is something that perhaps the team sometimes have been lacking up in front, which is something that I think they can really tune and really get into it and benefit with the games going forth while the players get to know each other more. So I saw more positive things than negatives. Yeah, they didn't win. Again, it was a catch-up game, but I did like a lot of things that I saw, a lot of positive things and some good changes. So I'm looking forward to see the second match to see if it was beginner's luck or if it's something that's going to keep evolving as the season also continues.
Victor, what are your initial thoughts? And maybe we'll dig down into some of the details relative to assistance, relative to maybe the players that played well versus the ones that maybe didn't. But your initial impressions, Victor, of the Dash versus the Spirit match.
Probably as good as a result as they were maybe going to get. If we're being realistic, I mean, we're talking about the current runners up. They're a team that's further along in their process. I think the response from the Dash was good, right? Trying to get it back into, somewhat of a comeback. They couldn't get that point, but I think there's things that you can build on. Now it's up to see if they're going to be able to build on some of those on the field, if they can start developing the attack a little bit. Because time will tell if some of the errors, mistakes, what have you, were just kind of early season, out of form type of things, or if they're going to be struggling for real. But I think there's I'll give it a positive spin. There's some good things to build on, and in the attendance, I'm sure we'll get into that. There's only one way to go, and that's up.
Without a doubt. Well, I like your optimism, at least to start the season, from both of you. Even though it wasn't 3 points, it wasn't even 1 point at home. We did see, from my perspective, a team that was searching, certainly in the second half, to attack more. We had the opportunity to talk to Avery Patterson at the conclusion of the match, Laura, and she spoke about the adjustments. She said, quote, "Coach lit a fire under our ass." Can I say that? I just did. And maybe that was enough of a motivator. But certainly, Laura, we saw a team that came out after being down 0-2 at halftime with a lot more energy and a lot more, I want to say, not fear of risking, of going for it. And I know those are not soccer technical terms, but I think sometimes the psychological aspect can be a lot more important. I don't know if you agree with my assessment, but we certainly saw a different team from the first 49 to the second half.
No, I agree. I mean, I think that sometimes teams, when they're so behind, although 2 goals can be something easy to catch up with, but it's still 2 goals against you. I think that a lot of teams will want to shut down and just, kind of just defend and not really try to open up, because when you go forward, you have to open up somewhere in the back and you have to be careful, not to have a counterattack. So I think that's something that they did well. Still continue to press, to push forward, and to really try to find that goal until, as we know, at least one was able to get back to the net. There were several that were so close that, even myself almost screamed out goal, because there were, the angle of it was like the perfect moment for you to call goal, but unfortunately it wasn't. But then again, if you want to say the positive things, I think that, yeah, they didn't win. They went back they had to catch up in the score, but I think that overall, I think it left a lot of good feelings for a lot of Dash fans.
A lot of Dash fans that were present, but a lot still missing, Victor. You were alluding to that, and I guess maybe that's a follow-up here. The passion for the fans that were there, I could sense, we could hear. It was exciting to be a part of that. Victor, the age-old question, which is now going on a decade, how can we get more people into that stadium? How can the fans get out there and support what, at least initially in this 2025 season, looks like a promising product?
Hopefully, right? Again, but even with what you have, I mean, I think you always have something to work with. We need to see the marketing push behind this team if they really wanted to succeed. I mean, I don't think, I've said it on the side of Dynamo for several years now, and there's a few years when maybe they do a thing here or there where they try to push forward a little bit, but it's never anything consistent, right? I don't know that we've ever seen, I'm just saying this from my point of view, the organization, either ownership group, go all in on the Houston Dash. I'm talking about investment in marketing. I'm talking about investment in sales and ticket staff. I'm talking about just getting boots on the ground and put a real effort behind promoting this team, getting them known in the city of Houston,
Yeah.
trying to pick out their space in the, we can call it noisy sports, atmosphere that Houston has with all the pro sports teams. I think even with the Dynamo, they battle to, like, for example, if the Dynamo get a billboard, I don't know if the Dash get the same type of treatment, like for like. So that's why I think, I'd like to see Ted Siegel, his ownership group, go all in on and really try to put an effort behind making this team make some noise in the city of Houston.
And it can, Victor. I sincerely believe in that, in increasing the attendance, increasing the exposure. You're bringing in also teams. We had Trinity Rodman. She didn't start for the Spirit, but she certainly, when she did come in, you could see the difference. She's a difference maker, national team player. Obviously, the daughter of Dennis Rodman, the basketball legend. But it's marketing like that, Victor, that I think can help the NWSL in general. And she's coming back from injury. And maybe this reminds me, Victor, of Messi. You don't want to sell something that maybe doesn't happen. But you're right. Did I see a lot of marketing of Rodman being in town for this match? I did not.
And I think you can do both. You can give your teammates space, but you can also... Look, part of it is the entertainment. Why should fans come out to this game versus the next one? And I think every game's a challenge that you're trying to give them a reason, right? The other side of that, I want to point out, and this may be an NWSL policy, the MLS does it too. I saw somewhere, like 7,000 attendance, and that's not the truth. So, and I think that may be tickets distributed. However, the NWSL wants to handle that. That's... whatever. Maybe that's just a thing I'm nitpicking at. But to me, I think it goes to the transparency, the being genuine, and just trying to, be honest about what you have, build on it, and just find ways to get people there and build trust with the community, with the Houston soccer community. Because again, I think we've seen games here where they put some different effort. There's more sweat equity, I believe, in the women's game than there is in the men's. I'll put it that way. I think the men sometimes are a little more coddled, and the women play a little bit more physical, sometimes more entertaining. That needs to be advertised, I think, because I think if people give it a chance, come out to the stadium, experience it for themselves, they may come back. But you got to put the avenues out there for that to be a possibility.
Victor, without a doubt, the marketing of any team, and it is a complicated sports environment in Houston. The Rockets are doing well. The Astros are about to begin, of course. There's always Texans talk. The rodeo is in town. So in many ways, that's distracting the possibility.
The all-night gas station.
Okay. The Sabercats are in town. Don't forget the little kitty cats from the professional rugby. My point is, yes, you need to stand out in some way. Now, I am aware now that the organization, the Dynamo and the Dash, are reaching out to youth clubs, and I'll speak about that a little bit more later. But they are trying also give away tickets. And let me give you this context. Let's go with the attendance of 7,000, which I don't believe is accurate. I think that's a fair comment. There's still an entire upper bowl that's wide open. Is there a way where you, so look, be a business person, Victor, Laura, friends, and say, listen, let's fill it up with free tickets. There'll still be consumption. There'll still be people buying popcorns, palomitas, buying the drinks, buying the margaritas that Laura loves so much, the corn on the cob, the Mexican street corn. You can still bring in some revenue buying jerseys by facilitating those tickets. Laura, is it going overboard to say, look, come in for free, for 50% discount? Is that groveling? Is that admitting that, hey, we're not getting the audience we want? Is that an extreme measure? I guess, Laura, that's what I'm asking.
I mean, I don't think that it's extreme. I think that it's valid because I think it's something that obviously, even when the game is shown on TV, you can see all the empty seats. So obviously, what you've been doing so far has not brought people to the stadium. So I don't think it's groveling. I think it's smart to try to find new ways. Let me tell you this: when I went to go see the Space Cowboys out in Sugarland, I went with my nephew. We won some tickets, and I went with my nephew, my brother, and my dad. We all ended up buying freaking shirts because my nephew was like, we all have to
Sure.
match. And of course, we're like, yeah, it's a family time. Let's just, buy the shirts and we can all match. So I think that it's not beyond to think to give those tickets super low at low prices because, I mean, water is like $8. So like, it's $8. If you want something other than water, it's going to be $10, $15. So you're going to get that money back tenfold.
Well, and why not partner, Victor? We just talked about the rodeo, and I've been to the rodeo, then I haven't been to the rodeo, and I come back. It's a tradition. It's a tradition for our community, our culture. But nobody's talking about the money that they're spending. Victor, I didn't go this year. They didn't invite me. But Victor, you were there recently, and if you don't mind sharing, I'm sure it wasn't cheap.
Well, I mean, I think there's something for everybody, right? I think it depends on how much you want to spend. The rodeo will take your money, but
Oh, yeah.
but there's a cheap ticket, right? If you just want to get on the grounds, if you just want to walk around outside the carnival, um, and I know that's a different scenario, the rodeo and the dash, but I think you know you're talking about, okay, free tickets, and I know they probably don't want to give anything away. Okay, but I think it's fair to ask for an accessible option, right? I think if maybe and I'd have to do some due diligence here because I don't have off the top of my head what the cheapest ticket for a dash game is, but I imagine it's probably somewhere around $20. I mean, make it 10, make it where's the 713 deal, right? Make it something where with fees you can still take a family of four, or I mean, there's some families that are larger than that. I don't know if you make a kids and come in free day or something like that. I think there's several things you can do to make it more accessible because in the end, that's what the sport is about, right? I mean, that anybody can come in and celebrate, and I agree with you. I mean, we're not even talking about the upper bowl. I believe the lower bowl is about 7,000 capacity or something like that. So, I mean, if the attendance was true, I mean, we'd see almost a damn near empty, I mean, full stadium just at the bottom. But
Yeah.
again, it's just more so than the optics. It's just for me. You want to talk about the business side of that. Every empty seat is missed money.
Sure.
It's missed
Sure.
revenue. It's missed. It's a missed opportunity. And if you multiply it times, however many games they have, I mean, how much money are they losing a year? Now, the flip side to that is, and I feel this is the way maybe they think, because I feel the same way the Dynamo thinks sometimes. It's maybe if the it's not at full capacity, maybe it's less expenses, less people you have to pay, less staff. I don't know.
I
But
actually, yeah. Look, let me jump in
yeah,
on that one. My understanding of running a stadium is that you've got hard costs, Victor. You've got to turn on the lights. You've got to turn on the water. You've got to have staffing as if you were having 2,000 or 22,000 people. So the
so might as
expense.
well try to fill up every seat.
Agreed.
Get
Agreed.
22,000 in there.
Agreed. So,
Yeah.
yeah, Laura, back to my point maybe that I was trying to make. Is this the time to make it so accessible that it's too easy to get in? Is that, again, is that admitting that the product isn't there? Or does that hurt anyone? And maybe the economics of it, I don't pretend to know every detail, but maybe this time to open it up that way.
I mean, I think it would be the smart thing to do. Again, we bring the Astros to a perfect example when they were like, below the lowest of the lowest at their point that they were selling tickets for like $10 and you got a free beer and a free hot dog, I want to say. So things like that can be done. I think it was a miss not to promote more the players that perhaps Washington were bringing. They had the Colombian Lacey Santos. They
Yeah.
also had the Mexican Bernal, which there were several Mexican ladies waiting for Bernal to sign. So, and for Diana Ordóñez as well. So I think that the marketing also has to do with trying to boast. I'm not saying do it depending just on them, perhaps like how they did the Messi marketing, because obviously we knew how Messi ended up, being, and Messi didn't even come to Houston. So I think it's obviously not that, but you can promote in a healthy way the other players from the other team. So I think it's smart to do that if you can, and giving the tickets at a lower discount. I don't think it's going to hurt them because, like you mentioned, they're still paying whatever the amount is to have 10 people, 30 people, or 20,000 people. So I think more promotions, and I think even more marketing, because if you have a promotion for $10 but you're not marketing it, like, what are we doing? It's still wasting that promotion. So I think more people need to know.
So I just want to add, so I'm on SeatGeek now. For the next home game, Dash against Gotham, it's Friday, March 28th. By the way, that'll be our next home broadcast if you want to listen to it in Spanish.
Thanks for the promo, Victor. I like that. Thank you. He's learning.
But
we have to promote ourselves more.
Including fees, box office ticket, which is the one that comes straight from the club. Cheapest one is $26 a person. So you're talking family of four. That's $100, right?
Right.
That's not counting the popcorn, all that stuff, parking. So I mean, again, when that's your price of getting in, and if you were selling out the stadium, I'd say it's different. Supply demand. You set it at whatever you want. And again, I think going back to you can go to rodeo, you can go to the Messi game
without Messi
against the Dynamo. I mean, I think people have money to spend, and they'll spend it on things that they will consider they get some value out of their entertainment. You just got to give them a reason to do it. Clearly, they're not seeing at this moment. Again, maybe it just needs more promotion. We're going to try to do our part as far as trying to get some more of those stories out there,
sure,
getting people to know more of these players and, see a little bit more of the team. But again, $26 to get in. At least for the people that live right down the street, I can see people saying, you know what, maybe I'll watch it from home, or I'll wait till, a Trinity Rodman or somebody like that comes to town. I mean, that's why I think you got to make it easy. You got to give them a reason to get in there.
Exactly.
The ball's in their court, I think.
Victor, and a Trinity Rodman was in town, and like that, many teams. Gotham has several players of quality, of national team level, and I think part of this puzzle, because I don't pretend to have the answers, is telling those stories, Victor, and that's part of the marketing. Laura, I know you're a big advocate of women in sports. We talk often about the WNBA and the Houston Comets and telling those stories. And at some point, it did become also a financial consideration for continuing or not. But that's in the past. Where I'm going with this, Laura, is in this crowded market space when it comes to the Texans, the Rockets, the Astros, the Dynamo themselves, college sports, the rodeo. How do we tell these stories, Laura? If the media, even right now, I was reading U of H, the men's basketball program, one of the top programs in the country. They don't have every station running over to have coverage. On the flip side, the Astros, and I consider spring training preseason, and there's some stations that are camped out there doing live interviews every hour. How does this change, and specifically, Laura, to support women's soccer in our city? What has to give? What has to change? Because something has to change. It's a cultural thing. I'll be quiet, Laura. I need my pill.
No, I think that it's just a lot. It's a packed question. So I think there's a lot of elements that go into this. And I think that we've been talking about this. I know in the prior episode, we also kind of mentioned it. And some people might say, oh, it's repetitive, but it's just an issue that we continue to see because the talent is there. And for me, it's painful and it's very sad to see that there's not more people coming to support these women, because it is a very entertaining game. And like I said, they've had their seasons that are up and down, but I think that certain games, if you don't want to just see the dash, you can also look into like who are they playing with, because obviously that there's more exciting games with certain rivalries and et cetera, but I think it's just really to support, because sometimes, yeah, you don't, you think that there's something else to do, but you want to support women's sport. And this is the way to do it. It's not only talking, and it's not only saying, oh, yeah, I support the Dash, but it's actually doing actions, which I think is something that people don't take into consideration. And then they're like, oh, no, we don't have a women's professional team. I'm like, yeah, but did you go see them when we had them? Like, it's not only saying you support them, it's doing things to prove that you're really supporting women's sports.
Yeah, well, look, I'm gonna go out on a limb and look into my crystal ball. I think the organizations, and I'm not now referring only to the Dynamo Dash and Shell Energy Stadium, but the Astros at their, it's not Minute Maid anymore. Someone help me out here, because we always call it the Juice Box.
It's always going to be Minute Maid. I don't know.
The baseball park where the Astros play and the Toyota Center, all three of those stadiums are within a mile of each other downtown. Friends, you know what's coming if you're thinking of working or traveling and being near downtown. A complete renovation of what is 45 North by the George R. Brown Convention Center, which, by the way, is also getting $1 billion or billions of dollars of a facelift. What I'm saying here, friends, is that in the next couple of years, getting in and out of downtown is going to be a nightmare. And that's going to affect business, Victor, for everyone. I know people are tap dancing around this as the Texans ask for a renovation of NRG, as the money has already been allocated and will start breaking ground on these new renovations. But this is not looking like a positive thing. You mentioned a family of four coming in from a suburb like the Woodlands or Katy. Or Pearland or anywhere. Victor, who wants the headache of showing up for a Friday night game at 7 o'clock, knowing it's going to take you 2 hours to get in and another 2 hours to get out?
And the renovations, again, it's give and take. Maybe that'll help make it a day-long thing. You got food options, whatever, downtown, and maybe it'll make more people come down in certain days. But for example, one of the interviews we got out this week, and one of the stories of this team is Barbara Olivieri from Katy. And so there's a link there. But if you're from Katy, you guys are out in Katy. You guys are in Katy. How long does it take to get into town? And how much of a, so you really got to want to go to watch the Dash, right?
You do.
And really got to, and once you do come out, you got to hope it's a good experience so you want to come back.
Victor, so where I'm going with this now is, remember, there was a push in the MLS, in the NWSL, to get into a downtown location. For many, many, many teams, it was, well, the soccer-specific stadium needs to be downtown. I don't know, friends, but that may swing another way now to get away from the mess.
No,
to get away.
I think,
so
I think it's still fine. Well,
I think
I'll let you finish.
I think it depends, Victor, of whether or not you are a suburbanite and want to drive an hour and a half in and that headache, or whether, like some urbanites that live and can walk to the stadium, yeah, of course, that's the life. But is that the crowd that the Dash and the Dynamo want or need? Question mark. I don't have the answer for that. As this develops, Victor, in our city of Houston, it is congested. Getting in and out is difficult. I think the practicality of that alone leaves some people outside. I'm going to go one more, and this is crazy, and I know someone's going to get mad at me. But if you're getting 7,000 people,
usual.
Yeah, if you're getting 7,000 people to Shell Energy Stadium, why not take the game to the people? Why not rent out Legacy Stadium, Victor, in Katy and fill it up with 10,000 fans? Why not take the show on the road? Is there something wrong with that? Why not go to the Tomball area? There's some beautiful stadiums now. High school stadiums.
I don't think they'll do it for. I don't think they'll do it for league games, but maybe that's just an NWSL thing.
Showcase, but it could be showcase,
whatever.
Games.
But I do think, yeah, you can take it to them. There was an opportunity to do that in preseason.
With the Trinity.
You could have had your preseason games all around town. There's opportunities like that all year long. These camps they hold. I mean, it's an effort throughout the year. It's not just a one-hit thing here and there, with like Billboard or something. I mean, it's a continuous effort. But again, I think you gotta attack it on all fronts. And to go back to the rodeo example, people take the park and ride. People drive there. People take Ubers. I mean, if there's a happening, if there's a reason for people to be there, they'll find a way to get down there. No matter if you're from the Woodlands, Katy, Pearland, whatever. I think the centralized stadium is fine, but I think again going to, you gotta attack from, okay, how many people? How do we make it easy for the people from the suburbs to come in and make it worthwhile? They're probably the ones that maybe could afford some of these tickets, actually, right? And what about the people that live around the stadium? What do we got to do for them because they're probably the ones that can go more frequently, take the metro around down there. What do we got to do for these guys? I mean, I think there's different plans of attack for each thing. But again, we go back to the Dynamo thing. I mean, there's 7 million proper in the entire greater Houston area. There's no reason they can't be filling out a 22 seat stadium. And I know maybe for the women's game that might seem like a high bar, but it shouldn't be.
No.
I think it's perfectly feasible. But again, they got to go all in. They got to go all in on this team.
Yeah. Lauda,
Well, there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, Lauda, the last word on attendance and how to improve or increase it.
I mean, I think some of the things that we've talked about, again, like in prior episodes and in this episode, is that there has to be more marketing and there has to be more ideas. And like you mentioned, having those showcase, games around the different suburbias, because again, it's crazy to think, and maybe it's because we're in this ambient, we're in this world of sports, we're in the world of soccer, that to me it's crazy. And I keep saying it because it's something that was traumatizing to me, that people don't know that we have a professional women's team. Like I've talked to several people and they don't know, and I'm like, what is going on? So obviously there's a disconnect, and we've said this before, but I think that taking those steps forward to, again, going grassroots, I think it's important. I think that it's important to reach the different suburbs like we mentioned, Katy, the Woodlands, Pearland, Fulshire, just get all those people that are out there to really want to go see them. And I know it's going to take a while. I mean, it took me an hour and almost 30 minutes to get to the stadium last time because of the traffic that there was. There was an accident on I-10 and it took forever.
You drive slow. You drive slow anyway, so.
I do. Besides that, I don't have a spaceship like you do. So I have to go in a different kind of car. But
by the way, it only cost me like $87 in tolls to get in and out. So.
Oh, well, there you go. 87. Okay, that's another issue, but that's a different issue for a different episode. But I do think that people will get excited to see that. I think that the children really do have a lot of fun. I think that it is a very family-friendly location. And like what Victor said, I mean, yeah, if you know it's going to take you that long, we can make it into a family staycation. I mean, I've done it when I've gone to see teams in other cities. Like we've just gone and just stayed there around the stadium, come and watch them, and then go back to, the different things that are around that same area. So I think that there's a lot of things that could be done. And again, bringing those packages together, because sometimes parents don't want to deal with thinking about everything. But if you give them like a package, I'm sure they're going to be like, okay, let's take our 10 kids. Let's see let's see what this game is all about. So I think that there's a lot of things that could be done there. And we have the population. So population is not an issue that Houston and surrounding areas have.
There are hundreds of thousands of young kids playing soccer in the Houston area. That even short term is a fan that can learn and needs to be approached. So we will continue on that. And again, not pretending we know it all, but at least trying to offer our perspective on that. As we close out the NWSL, or week one of the NWSL, a couple of notes that jump out at me. Number one, Boston, the team that's coming into the league, remember this, and we're trying to look for the video about the Boss Nation and more balls. Can I say that? I guess I can.
My gosh.
Lauda, apparently
You're just quoting them.
Yeah, we're quoting them.
Yeah, I mean, that's the worst part. That's what I'm saying. Oh my gosh, because it's something it was something that people were hired to do, and this is the best marketing thing that they could come up with.
Well, it certainly backfired on them, Lauda, because the news now is the new NWSL franchise will be changing their name.
Yes.
They haven't revealed what it's going to be, but I guess they were embarrassed or shamed or maybe just sobered up to not drink the Kool-Aid of some agency or entity that sold them this. None of this is perfect. We have entities that have been living with monikers, with names for years, and have changed them under different circumstances. Talk about the Washington team in the NFL, right? Now the Commanders, and there was a fight about that. Victor, good decision for Boston, bad decision?
Good. It was awful. Everybody was complaining about it. I'm surprised they actually got out of their own way, because some of these organizations, once they get into a certain mode in the way they think they do things, it's they really believe they're in the right. And um, yeah, I shouldn't be commending them, but I think sometimes um, when these organizations do make the right decision, it's almost a breath of fresh air that they actually acknowledge it and do it. We'll see now. We'll see what the name is,
Right.
and hopefully, it'll be something better, way better
And
than Boss Nation.
Laura, is that part of the process of getting people to support your team, your name, your moniker, your colors, your marketing strategy? There's a lot riding on that.
I mean, I think it was smart of the controlling owner, Jennifer Epstein, to actually sit down and listen to the people that were talking. The people were not happy with the boss acronym, and they weren't happy with the name. They weren't happy with the marketing, where they said, too many balls, and the way that they promoted men's professional teams, knowing the history that Boston has with women's soccer, which to me was kind of like, what's going on? Like, there was such a misconnection, such a huge miss, that I think they actually sat down and listened to the people that were actually complaining. They're saying there's no way that we're going to allow this team to be called this. And they're not the only teams that started off with one name and changed. Back then, with Racing Louisville wasn't Racing Louisville. It was called, I think it was like Proof Louisville FC. So it's not the first one that changes, but I think this is the fastest one that has changed their name, post pronouncing it what they were. So I think it's huge.
Well, it's huge, and I think most of us would agree. The consensus is that was not the best name. It got attention for the wrong reasons. But Laura, you're dressed today in a beautiful hoodie, Dynamo FC dash. It's not easy to change out the gear. It's an expensive proposition, is what I'm trying to say, Laura. So a little mistake like that, like, by the way, the Houston Dynamo initially, the 1836 team, if you recall, there was also some blowback with that. So you can't please everybody either, Laura. At some point, you've got to go with a name. Maybe you just keep it safe and simple.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it has to be something that it's connected. They have the money to do the research. They have the money to do polls. And I think now that the Boston has always been a very outspoken location, and I think that they've made their voice heard. And I think that now they know that they just can't throw anything out there and the people will accept it. So I hope they take the precautions to actually take the time and test out names before they come out and say this is the official name.
We've got another quick note on the NWSL, but when we're talking about Boston, we're talking also about Foxborough, and we're talking about the New England Revolution, Victor, which is the lowest attendance in the league. So I don't know if the men can't fill up Foxborough, if they can't fill up Gillette, or even get dash numbers to those games. I mean, there are literally 3,000 or 4,000 people in New England.
Yeah, but that's because they don't want to have a stadium downtown. They could build one, I think. That's my opinion.
The opposite here. This Foxborough, as many of you may know, it's
too far out.
It's too far out. It's a suburb of the Boston area.
Yeah, that's what I think. And look, it's a sister club of the New England Patriots. Robert Kraft owns that shopping center out there, so these games are a reason to get out there and business for him. So that's why I don't think they're going to move it. But this team looked like it was going to finally break that mold a little bit and be in town. It's just get a name that people. Again, there's just too much outside the box thinking, right? It's so simple. Stick to the product that's on the field. Promote that. Better it, and I think the rest takes care of itself. It's almost like again, there's too much out of the box thinking. It just happened in Major League Baseball with these hats that people don't even. I don't even know how some of this stuff gets cleared, but again, I think there's just too many.
The Texas Rangers hats, you mean?
Too many hats
in the Houston one,
and the Oakland ones too.
So there's several.
Yeah, it's just too many hands in the cookie jar. Just get qualified people, local people. I think would help even more.
Diversity.
And and somebody that knows the town, and it's as easy as that. There's no need to overcomplicate things. It's like these people are trying to bring data into soccer, and now where it's all computers and probabilities and zones and all. Just, dude, ball in the back of the net. It's that simple.
It should be that simple. Well, let's end on a positive note. Oh, go ahead, Laura, please.
Yeah, I do want to mention that that there is more drama going on in Boston because the New England Revolution owner, the son, Josh Kraft, is running to be mayor against Michelle Wu, and she's forward saying that she wants renovations to the stadium that's going to be for the NWSL, while Josh Kraft, which is running against her, doesn't want to do that. He wants the money to go to the New England Revolution, which they're trying to build another stadium with what I heard, that's soccer-specific stadium. So it's kind of interesting to see the battle of like basically the MLS and NWSL for territory, for money from the city.
And look, get ready. I think Houston, we're about to go through another construction boom when it comes to stadiums. I can sense it. I can feel it, and it starts with the Texans, and it starts with every stadium right now is going to say, look, if the Texans are in line, get us all. We need something. So I think something's about to give in that arena, pun intended, for Houston. And there may be some movement, friends, but I don't pretend to know the ins and outs. I think the political waves are starting to head in that direction. By the way, also led by the World Cup, which we'll be talking about a lot more. I think that may be an important piece to justify a lot of this coming expense for stadiums. But we'll see about that. Let's finish with this note, which is I think, a great note of the youth of the NWSL and the opportunity for McKenna Whittam, who at 14 years of age, guys, if you can believe it, she became the youngest player to play in an official NWSL game. Victor, at 14, I didn't even know how to brush my teeth, and this young athlete is playing. She's actually played before at 13 years of age with the team last summer. She's been in the system for a little while. Is it too much too soon for her? Or man, what an opportunity, and what a tremendous young lady, apparently, and on and off the field. It takes a strong person to do something like this.
We see it in the men's game all the time. I mean, there's some kids that are further developed than others and are ready for that level. Again, soccer's not about size; it's about talent. Look at Lionel Messi. That's the biggest proof, I think, right? And I know I've seen the counterpoints of that. Oh, what you just said, it's too soon. There's age groups for a reason. Come on. How about trust these coaches to know what's in the best interest of their players? They wouldn't throw them out there to get them injured or to get right. It's to help their development. They're not going to give them. It's not like they're going to play them 90 minutes right away. I think this is all part of the sport. And again, the biggest thing that when I saw that was Juan Carlos Amoros, who was the coach of the Dash. And you would have maybe had that youth movement here, and good for Gotham, and I think we'll start seeing this more in the NWSL as well with the elimination of the college draft, because you'll have more teams with academies and players coming through the system and getting on the field sooner.
Well, I think there's a positive and negative to that on the youth side. But Laura, your impressions of this 14-year-old soccer player playing at the professional level. I'm excited for her. I'm proud of her. She doesn't need my endorsement, but I think it's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, no, and I do want to say that women mature faster than men. So, at 14, you guys were doing something else. Women were doing something else already. So we're already more mature anyways, comparing ages. But I think she's very mature. I saw an interview that she did, and she's very mature. She knows what she wants. She talked about athletes that she's always admired, like Ronaldo, Mia Hamm, but she specifically said that she felt connected to Messi, because he's an attacking player, and she feels like she's an attacking player. She's been playing, she's 4, and the talent that she had was more advanced than kids her age, that many times she was placed 1, 2, 3 years in teams that were older than her, because that's the way that the coaches and her parents thought that, she was more advanced than kids her regular age. So she might be 14, but I think on the field, she's going to be very mature and very open to grow. And, she picked that team that she's in right now, Gotham, because she said that that was one of the teams that had the best development and that they were there for her since day one. So, she feels comfortable. Amoroso, I mean, he's a very great coach. Unfortunately, Houston let him go. And one of the things that he said to her before she hit the field is, have fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to always keep it light, especially because she's still developing as an adult. She's still developing, she's a teen. So she's developing a lot of things. A lot of things are going on in your life at that age, and much the pressure of being a pro athlete at that age can weigh. So she has to have a really good support system. And hopefully the support system that she's brought at home will also be one in the team.
We hope so. By the way, at 14 years of age, she became the youngest, beating out the previous 14-year-old, Melanie Barcenas, who is now with the San Diego Wave, and she's a veteran now at 17 years of age. But, there's always a cautionary tale to these things. Most of you that follow soccer remember the name of Freddie Adu, and how Freddie Adu in the MLS became an overnight sensation. He was touted as the next Maradona, the next Pelé, the next whomever you want to mention. And we know how that story went. And it was a struggle for him being so young and everything that he went through. And literally, I was looking at a list of teams that he went through. Victor, he didn't stay anywhere longer than a year, maybe 6 months. I think the list is literally 15 to 20 teams that he signed on with. And look, it's one thing to be the youngest or the tallest or the smallest or whatever, but you still have to have that word you mentioned, Laura, which is fun, and then make a career out of it. So I want to wish all of these young players the best. I think, Victor, the other thing that changes now is the expectation now is what? Younger and younger? Could you have a team that...
No, I think this is probably a generational talent. And that's the other thing. This doesn't mean that every 14-year-old now is ready for the NWSL.
Correct.
I think people need to pump the brakes on that kind of thinking.
Correct.
Or 16 or whatever, I think it could be a once-in-a-lifetime player. She's getting an opportunity. If she's not ready, I think there's a plan there to manage expectations. And hopefully, again, she has the support system, as y'all said, to help her manage those expectations as well and guide her so that she doesn't become a cautionary tale. But this doesn't mean that all of a sudden, we're going to have an influx of 15, 16-year-olds into the pro game. I mean, I think that's where we also got to temper expectations. And we'll see how this tale goes. But I mean, this was going to happen eventually, too. There was a lawsuit against the NWSL a couple of years back for that reason, right? Because in the men's game, you're able to debut sooner.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll see.
Look, I know we'll talk more about it. It's on the youth side. And, for full disclosure, I run a soccer club. And whenever someone comes to me, and you said it properly, Victor, my daughter, my son, they're ready for more. I think you've got to really think about that because not everyone is prepared, not only physically, not only tactically, but psychologically, developmentally. Laura, as you mentioned, there are some kids that may physically be playing above their ability, but maybe they're still kids, and they should be kids for as long as possible and have FUN, which is fun. And we forget all about that piece. A lot to get through, and we're running long, so I'm going to jump in, guys. Let's talk a little bit about the other team in Houston, the Houston Dynamo. Victor, another game and another loss at home. No wins yet in 4 matches. They took on the team from Real Salt Lake, and again, giving up an early goal. Not a great start. Just your assessment of what the latest Dynamo game has been for Ben Olsen and company.
Look, I think again, you could see this coming down the road. I think maybe I saw this coming 2 years ago or whatever it was, because I thought eventually they would move in this direction, going cheaper, just kind of riding the early success they've already built. And so now everybody's gonna have their own opinion. Some people will say, well, they're into this mentality. It's a long season. I mean, I think if you're not necessarily hitting the alarms, but if you're not getting a sense of urgency here, I mean, I think we all saw that the Dynamo didn't retool correctly. I think it's again, until I see that designated player that's supposedly coming, I I wouldn't hold my breath, and it was expected. When the other team has a player that's basically the most talented player on the field, in Diego Luna, um, you know, RSL trying to get revenge for some prior games, right? They came in here, punched them in the mouth from the first minute. Um, so there's many things to nitpick. The biggest thing that I take away from it um, is that you had a player on the field, Diego Luna, who could have been part of your organization, and talent scouting, whatever, or you didn't want a player like that. In the end, um, history continues to repeat itself, and until they change course, I mean, I think we're on the same road. Unfortunately, we don't. There's not going to be a big reaction until the end of the year, which would be if or not they make the playoffs. And of course, if they make the playoffs, they're going to applaud themselves and say, "Look, we knew it all along. We were on the right path." And if they don't make the playoffs, and that's when people, can jump on and say, "Look, come on, the whole year we told you, you didn't retool, whatever." Unfortunately, it's a long season.
It's a long season, and mathematically, it doesn't help that a team like Vancouver has won 4 games in a row. They have 12 points. The Dynamo currently are not in last place because of a goal differential, because of 1 goal. But Victor, that's already a steep mountain to climb. Laura, it was frustrating for Ben Olsen. I think he's starting to settle into a reality of what the season may be. And we talked about this. I think you get to 7 to 10 games, and your season may be decided if you don't start picking up victories. It's too easy to criticize at this point, and that's not maybe my perspective here. It's maybe what Victor has said. How did we get to this point? And Laura, only 4 games in, maintaining an optimistic tone. How do you get out of it?
I mean, it's harder. It's harder the more you go into the season and have these kind of results, because you have to dig yourself out of a hole, and then also depend on results of other teams, which is not a position you want to be in. Again, watching the highlights of the games, I didn't watch the game, I watched the highlights. The defense has a lot of work that needs to be done. I mean, they were too easily broken into, too easily defeated. I mean, if you don't get that back fixed ASAP, there's going to be more troubles. And then the goals against you are going to be infinite and really hard to compete. Alarms need to be turned on since last game.
Without a doubt, it's a troubling time for the Dynamo FC, and Victor, maybe there is the hope that there will be a designated player and things turn around. But I am not so optimistic until something comes. Let's talk quickly about a couple of things. Well, I'll let you have the last word, Victor, because also this week I think we have the Salvadorian national team coming in for a friendly middle of the week. I don't know who thinks of these things, but we know what we're going to see, Victor, and I don't mean to be negative. You're not going to have your starters out there for the Dynamo. You're going to have a young team.
Well, because you have Seattle a couple of days after that.
Exactly, and that's just obvious. So this is a friendly. It's a scrimmage. I don't know what else to call it. In a packed calendar, Victor, why would you even think about scheduling this? I guess it's someone offered money. That's the only reason.
I would imagine they're getting a cut of something here.
Yeah.
And again, it's still an opportunity to earn some of those fans, make them fans of your team. Again, I think if there was more foresight to this stuff, you could have made, again, 20th seasons. You could have celebrated the Dynamo players of the past, the Salvadorian players. Darwin Seren, who is one of them, will be playing for the Salvadorian national team. You could have brought in Ronald Cerritos, original Dynamo. Maybe he didn't get a lot of minutes on that first team, but Arturo Alvarez, another player with Salvadorian descent, that you could have made it a Dynamo/Salvadorian night, something, a big celebration. I've yet to see if this is going to be televised, which I can't imagine. I mean, that's another side of this. I don't know how you don't maximize the opportunity, but that's a separate conversation. The on the field stuff, again, it'll be an opportunity for minutes for some of these players that we
Mhm.
haven't seen, an ex in Arsu or somebody like that. But again, I think the big piece is people didn't value, or maybe they underestimated how much of an impact Hector Herrera made on this team. And I think again, you need a player, a game changer of that caliber, because listen, McGlynn may have the talent, or Artur may have some of the experience, but they're not presence. They don't have a presence that commands the team. I think we've
Sure.
seen it already in some of these games. Nico Lodeiro doesn't have the legs, and we knew that. Um, you got to get more out of other players like Basi and Kovalchik, Aliyu, again, because I think, again, foreseen, because you knew the level those players had. It gets um, exposed now that you don't have a player like Herrera, right? Or even Carrasquilla, to that example, or Mikael at the back. Andrew Tarbo got injured, sure, but you also decided to move on from Steve Clark.
Yeah.
You got Jimmy Mauer, so maybe they got some credit there. But I don't know if Jimmy Mauer is going to be a goalkeeper that wins you games, or just keeps you points, especially with this defense. So
Well,
part of it is also tactics. That's just my opinion. I think you could change that up a little bit. It is salvageable, but you gotta help yourself out in this situation. And again, I go back to it. No youth. You don't have an academy to pick from and say, I'm gonna move somebody up. Ben Olsen the other day in the press conference said, in frustration, I don't have any center backs. Right? That I don't have any other center backs. Imagine if you had an academy that could give you some of these options to plug in there.
Mhm.
Younger kids, raw talent maybe, but talent that could help you out a little bit.
but Victor, but here's one of the conundrums, and help me out with the detail here. Jack is a national team player, and now the problem is Jack will be borrowed for a little while here and there. So then the Dynamo have a young national team player, but then when he's not available, what happens? So
Well,
it's
that's part of the package when you get a player like that.
right.
And the flip side of that is you gotta advertise that. You gotta market that as well, to your advantage. But that's part of the package. And the only thing for me, I like the McGlynn acquisition. I felt bad for him because I thought this would be a move that stunts his growth as a player. I don't know if he's going to necessarily get to Europe with the Dynamo. Hopefully, I'm wrong. But this may be another type of player like a Coco Carrasquilla that shines more with the national team than he does with his club.
His
And
club
he
team, yeah.
probably should be with the talent that's on the U.S. national team compared to what you have at the Dynamo. But you got to see a little bit of a parallel there, and I don't know if we're going to necessarily see it with young McGlynn.
Well, one of the problems with Jack McGlynn in this city is that many people don't even know who he is, Victor. Back to the marketing, back to the branding, back to letting the Houston sports culture know we've got a national team player here. I haven't seen much of that, so that's part, I think, of the effort. Just the education of what that means at the level
And
where,
I'll just
Jack
add,
is.
the funny part of all of this is you actually have a bona fide, or you could say that, a bona fide goal scorer, a designated player in Ezequiel Ponce. They haven't found a way to nurture that. And that's why I say it's also tactics. They got to find a way to get him more service, nurture his game, to give him more opportunities to score. It's the same old tale repeating itself. Fine, maybe Ferreira didn't fit the system, but it was the same thing. You weren't getting him chances. Here's a guy that's not getting chances either. He's not going to do it with 2 a game. That's not going to help him out. He'd be in the Premier League if he could, make something out of 2 chances. So, Basi, Kovalchik, anybody you play, they gotta play for him, I think, because that is the one game changer you do have. And if you could add another one, that would only alleviate some pressure off of Ponce.
Victor, let's wrap up the MLS and talk quickly about the Apple TV deal. Rumblings are, and I've read a few things here and there, anonymous MLS executives that are talking about getting out of the deal, that you've isolated yourself in behind a paywall, that this is an exclusive arrangement, that yes, maybe bringing in money to the league, but the people aren't watching. So Laura, I'll turn to you first. You've talked about this since the deal began.
I mean,
But is it time to pull the plug? Do you think
yes.
that the MLS will say, listen, Apple, we love you, but we're not the league that's ready for this. We need more mass appeal.
I just think that there has been a lack of sync between the MLS and Apple. I think that there's so much potential to make it huge, but they also have to be aware that people are getting tired of apps. Everyone's getting tired. Oh, I have to have this app, or no, I have to have this app to watch this and to watch that. So they need to create a kind of syncrecy that people locally will be at least able to watch the game and whatever channel, but also have, the logo of Apple on there. I mean, there's ways, well, there's a will, there's a way, like I mentioned today. That's my motto for today's podcast. I think it is possible for them to stay, but make it obviously economically worth for them, but also for the people that are watching. Like I said, my dad is 73 years old, and he's like, I'm not going to pay anything to watch the Dynamo lose. Those are the words of this wise man. And if the Dynamo wants to appeal, Houston and surroundings, and knowing that right now they're not the best team or have been in a while, they have to make it worth the people's time and for them not to feel like they're getting, paying for something that's not going to entertain them. So I think it's important to have everything into consideration. I would say, yeah, pull the plug, but I think that they can salvage it, but they're going to have to do a lot of grassroots kind of things, which is something that a lot of the big conglomerate companies don't know about, and that's why they fail.
Victor, is it time to keep it on Apple TV, adjust it so that it's also available locally, and get it back to the Glenn Davises so that the focus is on someone that knows the team, that knows the culture, that knows Houston? The times I've tried watching and listening, and please, I am the worst broadcaster in any language myself. I'm not critical of any broadcasters because I know it's a difficult job, but it seems so alien to Houston. It seems the Rockets have local broadcasters. The Texans have their own, obviously a big deal, but they have the voice of the Texans. The Astros, there's a lot of local. The Dynamo, as far as I know, other than Spanish language with Daniel and Cesar, there is no local flavor to the games, Victor. I don't know. I think maybe a balance in that would be good, wouldn't it?
Well, I don't think the Apple deal is changing much unless they say so, right? So if they, it'd be nice if they can open it up a little bit.
They meaning Apple.
Yeah, unless they loosen up a little bit, right? And say, all right, we're going to allow, local broadcasts. We're going to allow the feed to be, carried by local channels or whatever. I still think it's, contrary to what a lot of people may think, I like the Apple deal. I think worldwide you get more distribution. I think that there's good things to build on. The problem is that all the promises they made in the beginning haven't really been followed through. The more you localize it, I think helps, right? Glenn Davis, you can listen to him on Dynamo home games. You got to work with the audio options a little bit, but you can listen to him.
Do people even know that? Is it accessible?
Well, I think that's up to the teams in the league to promote that even more. I remember when MLS was pumping this thing out, they were promising that down the road, I thought it was going to be maybe second year or something like that. Once they worked out all the kinks down the road, the same was going to be offered for Spanish.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen that. You can't get the Spanish feed on Apple, which I think would be another plus. I don't think, you go in there and see some of that content. It's basically, you might even find more exclusive stuff on the team's YouTube channels. And so I think a lot of the content stuff on there's not much reason for you to dive into the team, get an exclusive look. I think they're trying to distribute it a little bit more. They always like offering free T-Mobile.
Victor,
obviously season ticket holders already get it for free. Yeah, but putting more games on Apple TV Plus, which is a separate thing. But the other part of it is I just think there has to be more. And I'll, from my understanding, MLS manages some of this stuff too. So it's not all just on Apple. I go back to it. I think the product on the field is the winner. That's what you got to sell. That's what you got to um, put out there. And I'll compare it to this real quick. Major League Baseball is on Apple TV Plus, right? They got a Friday night game, which is essentially which is what they're trying to do on Sunday nights for MLS. And I know there's been fans that complain about that too. So you're never going to please everybody, but I think there's good things to it, right? Here's the other one. They've been promoting this. What is it, Onside or whatever? It's like in the players' lives, and I don't know. It's like a reality show. I saw today it popped up on my feed for Apple TV Plus. MLB followed. I think the Dodgers and the Yankees are in the World Series, and there's like a documentary about that, and it's intriguing. It takes you into the game. I don't know why we can't get that kind of content for soccer. Yeah. Why does it have to be this gimmicky, hey, let's see players on their day off and what they do? And how, for me personally, I don't care about that. I don't care what they do on their free time. Show me what they do in training. Give me a little bit of insight of how they talk about the game, of what drives them to be a better soccer player. Their stories, right? Yeah. How they got to be a professional player, whether they're from, Argentina or Denmark or the U.S. or Mexico. I think, again, that's the stuff they got to drive into Apple instead of just kind of, half effort there. And all right, we're on Apple, so that means people are going to automatically watch us.
My concern about the deal, Laura and Victor, is what happens when Messi is done, and he will be done at some point. And you no longer have that shining star, literally, that around the world motivates people to that can't afford it, that have the technology and the access to the Apple TV Plus. And everything's a plus these days, by the way. You get one service, you need another service. In my family, I was counting the services apparently that I'm paying for, and it's crazy. It's out of control. I think at some point, it's going to swing back the other way. I think at some point you have to make it accessible. You have to make it inexpensive. You have to make it something local. But Victor, I do agree with you that that's still the shining future. Apple has money apparently to burn. So for them, this means nothing. I just feel that this is another opportunity, and let me localize it with the Dynamo FC and the Dash, that the more you move away from that local, and the term you used, Laura, grassroots here, it's going to take you even longer to come back to that. What happened with the youth clubs, and I'm going to call it this, the admitted by the current ownership group and management group mistake of trying to launch your own youth club. That still has repercussions to this day, alienating part of the community. There are some people, there's a generation that won't know Dynamo players because they never watched them, because they couldn't afford Apple TV. Laura, to your point, it's going to take another generation to even start getting close to that. And then losing doesn't help. So I don't want to paint an overall negative picture, but maybe the local teams, Victor, I'll let you finish with this, their hands are tied. MLS dictates, look, we're getting the money in. That's what the owners care about. Don't worry about the local
that's
stuff.
That's a cheap excuse. That's a cheap excuse.
It's an explanation.
Maybe, you know what, if you want to say as far as a game broadcast, but again, you're not tied to what you can do with your radio deal, how much access or even partnerships you can have with local TV stations. Maybe they don't get to broadcast the games. You can have a weekly show, English or Spanish language. You can have radio talk shows. You can try to nurture that. You can try to talk to the Chronicle and see if they can, how do they get an actual writer to be present at games and write about your games and write about your team, rather than just picking up wire reports from the Associated Press. I mean, there's several things, like you said. You could promote Glenn Davis. And I mean, I was in the car the other night. I went during the game to pick up some food. I was listening to the Spanish call on TUDN. And I didn't even think about it. I could have probably listened to Glenn, but I gotta go to their website. But it's out of mind, Alex. It's out of mind because they don't even promote it. I mean, and that's me knowing, because I cover the team and maybe I I dive into their website a little more than a normal person. Imagine the normal person doesn't know they have a local broadcast available on digital.
Yeah. Well,
So
you're definitely
I
you're definitely
yeah.
not a normal person, Victor. So you're
Well,
you're 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 right about that. Laura, the
but
last
I
word.
think there's other
Yeah.
fronts they can work on. Just to wrap up, I think there's other fronts they can work on before they worry about just the broadcast of a game itself.
Laura, the last word. You have a lot to say. I can sense this.
No, I mean, I just think that again, I always honestly, I think it's part of me of saying we always have to reach into the communities and reach into grassroots, and that is the answer to everything, honestly. Because if you want to come in here and be part of the community, you have to also take care of the community in a sort of sense. And I don't think Apple has that connection with the different teams that they have in the community. Like we kind of mentioned, I mean, there's so many broadcasters like Glenn David that has been here for a while, like, journalists like Victor, like yourself, Alex, and myself that have been covering the team since day one, that, Apple could take advantage of, like, hey, do a short 3-minute interview and be like, hey, Glenn Davis, what was your favorite game that you called? Or, Victor, what do we need to do to fix this team? Or, talk to more local people that have been covering this team or have been attending to these games. I just think that, again, the answer is community and grassroots.
There you have it. And then relative to the Apple TV deal and the MLS, a couple of quick hits before we go. Victor, there is news in the last week or so that Dallas will be the media center for the 2026 World Cup. An entire convention center is going to be focused on that. I guess it makes sense relative to traveling around the United States. What does that mean for the city of Dallas and then the coverage that Dallas would receive? I mean, we're talking about journalists from throughout the world having a home at least for a couple of weeks in the northern part of Texas.
Not a surprise. Middle of the country, one of the big markets, big media markets, Dallas. So I don't think any of that was a surprise. And obviously ambitious. Jerry Jones has been ambitious in trying to get as much to Dallas as he could. They tried to go for the World Cup final, I think, for as much as it wasn't going to happen. And again, I think you see there the ambition from a city like Dallas that it's in Houston. I think sometimes we're a little bit too quiet. Maybe not the media center, but maybe there's other opportunities to really put the city in a spotlight. So, again, not a surprise. Good for Dallas, and we'll see what else comes. I guess there's going to be like new posters. There's more stuff ahead of the World Cup. But
yeah,
this was obviously a big important piece.
Laura, the new posters are getting rolled out as early as tomorrow when we're recording here. So every city will have a rollout. The posters are an important part, right? This is all very calculated, Laura. But I still have World Cup posters from Mexico '86, from Italia '90. Let's see here.
It's a long time ago.
A very long time ago, the original ones. But as a young soccer fan, it means a lot. And again, we can poo-poo what it is or isn't, but I think that'll leave a legacy. Laura, your take on the new posters, and Houston should be releasing their poster within the next 2 weeks.
I mean, I think, like you said, I think it's something that's important and really kind of materializes that the World Cup, it's coming, and it's like almost here. I was talking to my mom, which we make her follow soccer, and she's used to it now because she has so many people in the household that, lived and breathed soccer. She was like, well, the World Cup is, almost a year away. I'm like, no, Mom. I'm like, there's no way. Obviously I was driving and she was talking to me. And then I was like, wait, what year are we in? I'm like, wait, when is the next one? Oh my gosh, yeah, it's almost here. And I think that Houston needs to amp it up. Just like Victor said, I think we're a little bit too quiet. And I think that more noise needs to be done, especially because of the kind of world that we're living in the U.S. right now. I'm not going into politics, but a lot of people are being turned off by coming to the U.S. or might not even be able to make it to the U.S. because of the political climate. So I think we have to rely on other things to make the World Cup something that's big and huge in the U.S. Because a lot of people are saying that they'd rather travel to Mexico or to Canada and not the U.S. So that's something to take into consideration as well. Will it affect us? What's going to happen? I mean, I think that it's a lot of things that are riding in this World Cup that are different compared to others.
The World Cup, a motivator for many cities to upgrade their infrastructure. Laura and Victor, my take on the NRG Stadium. We already know that there was going to need to be a remodeling, Victor. Mr. Chris Canetti talked about how NRG Stadium needed to be retrofitted to allow for more space, especially in the ends relative to the corners. So that's coming. I sense energy, and again, it's more of a feeling than something that I can document now. But Victor, do you think that there will be a move? The Houston Texans, want a new stadium. They want either major investment in refurbishing NRG or even something more. Victor, the timing isn't right to build a brand new stadium between now and 2026. There's just not enough time. But will this be the impetus headed in that direction, Victor? Do you think that's what people way above my pay grade are searching for here, new stadia?
I think so, but I think for a different reason, which is the Texans, right? And what you've seen also with NFL stadiums and all these, premium areas, all this stuff. Maybe NRG got a little bit too outdated too quick. I think you've seen that with the Dynamo Stadium as well. Just the way some things have been constructed, right? The press box in the corner. You get up to the second level. I think there's like the one elevator. You don't even have restrooms at the top. I mean, if you're talking about, people that are use the accessible seating, I mean, they got to go down the elevator to the restroom on the first floor. Those little things that people didn't have the foresight to build. So I we'll see what happens, but I think maybe the World Cup is actually the saving grace because it's a big payday, a couple of big paydays, in spite of some of the things that they may be lacking, but because of the city, because of the soccer culture here, because of the it's an airport hub, right? The Intercontinental Airport. I think that all helps for what's coming next year. And again, it's so simple, right? It's just having a place where these games can be played because it's about the game. It's not about the stadium. That should be the attraction. Maybe in the NFL, you need all these bells and whistles, but you look at soccer all around the world, you just need a nice field and let's get on it.
Look, I see that, Victor, but I think there's a practical part of this, which is, even at NRG, there's investment, Laura, because you're going to have a natural grass surface. So there's a change that's coming, and that's a minimal cost relative to what else is being asked. But do you think, Laura, the pointed question is the post-World Cup world will leave a soccer-specific stadium better than Shell? Will Shell be renovated? I still believe, and people laugh at me, but until you get a weather or a temperature-controlled stadium, you're not going to have big crowds consistently at Shell. That's my honest opinion, because I've become an old man and I don't want to sit in traffic for 3 hours to drive in, and I don't want to sweat and pay $87 a ticket. But that's me. I'm sure there's some young people that love getting their sun and don't mind the humidity. Laura, new stadium? Yes, no, maybe?
I don't know. I think that it's something that we have to see. We have to see what happens, because unfortunately, sometimes when it's post World Cup or even Olympics, a lot of the stadiums just sit there, and so much money was spent, and they just sit there, and there's nothing really done to them. They're all locations that have benefited the local teams because of the renovations. Like I'm going to give an example, like Atlético Nacional and Independiente Medellín, El Atanasio Girardot, which is the stadium, has been renovated because there's a lot of youth Olympics going on, and like different track stuff, and like a lot of things that are international are done there. So it has to be kept and renovated, and they have taken advantage of the money in that renovation. So hopefully that comes to be true also here in Houston.
Well, we'll see the finances, the economics of the World Cup. Of course, we'll cover a lot more. We're wrapping up, guys. They're telling me it's time to go. But before we go, friends, what's on our mind? Laura, I'll start with you. What's on your mind as we wrap up this latest edition of the Soccer Tejas podcast?
Well, I have two, but I'm going to do it real quick. I know probably you guys have read or you've seen a lot of the things that happen in the Xolos women's soccer team, that they're vestidores, the English word left me. their locker rooms
Yeah.
was kind of vandalized and destroyed by the men's Atlas team after they played the men's Cholos team, and they were celebrating. And they tore apart the women's locker rooms, which is used for visitors. I mean, so it's been used consecutively for Liga MX, and this had never happened. And they wrecked it. They took away the pictures and everything that was, done beautifully for the women. So that really upsets me because, first of all, you're in a different team's house. You're being disrespectful. Damn well that the women have fought really hard to get to where they're at. They're not being paid the same thing that the men are being paid. And to do that, it's really upsetting to see that because it's a lack of respect. And I don't want to think that because they thought it's a women's team that they could get away with it. And hopefully they don't. So that was very upsetting to read and to just, hear the declarations of a lot of the women in that team. That was upsetting. So that's in my mind. Always, it's women's soccer, women's sports. I think that it's something, again, that we have to really commit to supporting and speaking out about these problems and issues, and sometimes just even retweeting it because I can't do anything out here in the U.S. I think it's important for people to know.
It's a shame, but definitely we need to be supportive of preventing things like that if possible, and maybe it's education in general terms. Laura, that's what's on her mind. Victor, what's on your mind as we wrap up the podcast?
We got a couple good games coming up in international play, and especially here regionally, the CONCACAF Nations League. The USA is going to go for a 4th trophy. We're going to see if Mexico can win one. Canada, can they finally take one for themselves? And Panama's always been a good watch these last few years. For locally, obviously, Jack McGlynn has now joined the U.S. roster. So let's see how he does there. But SoFi Stadium, who's housing the Nations League, is going to use grass. They've installed grass for these games, and I believe the U.S. women's national team is coming up as well. So more to this theme of the World Cup is literally just next year. Other cities are seem like they're further along or doing other things, and hopefully we can ramp up the energy here in Houston. You were talking about the stadium too. Imagine if the Dynamo regularly sold out and there was more interest around this team, and we could talk about a possibility of, maybe this could be in Atlanta or Seattle, and why not the Dynamo sharing a stadium with the Texans? And then you have one, we have grass field, you get your roof, all that kind of stuff. But it's not even a possibility again. And that's why when we talk about all these other themes, I mean, it all leads to lost opportunities. So again, hopefully the World Cup will be a necessary impulse into what the sport needs in Houston, because otherwise, I mean, it's dead and buried.
Victor,
the program at least.
Victor, never say never. I think you're thinking outside the box. And if things aren't working, why not? I love the idea of franchises finding a way to work together. Now, do they want to each own their own fiefdom and control it? Absolutely they do. But if it ain't working, maybe you go out there and say, hey, let's partner with this. Let's make this successful. Let's renovate. I think we should get rid of the Astrodome and build 2 or 3 stadia there in that location, and let's run it together and let's help each other out. But this takes thinking beyond the traditional Jerry Jones you mentioned, Victor, who wants to control everything for him. But
there was once an opportunity. I don't know. I believe you know this. There was once an opportunity to renovate the Astrodome and have when there was a Chivas USA in LA, to have a Club America Houston, and have that be a soccer facility. And so there was some kind of that thinking before. And just to add that into the mix here with the 20-year history of the Houston Dynamo, and as we dive into more of that throughout the year.
Victor, look, the rodeo shares the stadium with the Texans. They found a very successful formula. Friends, let that settle in quickly before we go. What's on my mind? I was recently part of a group of youth club leaders, Victor and Laura and friends that had the opportunity to talk openly with the Dynamo Dash organization. And this was a very positive step from the organization to reach out in a genuine way about what other youth clubs are doing and how they can be part of the soccer culture, and how we can together work together to improve relations between us as clubs, between clubs and the Dynamo Dash professional organization, the academy side of it. And this is something, believe it or not, friends, that had never previously happened. It's been more than a decade, 11 years, since there was this break in youth clubs from one league to multiple leagues. And at least it was a beginning of hopefully another chapter, a new chapter to youth soccer in our city. So still a lot of work to be done, but I'm grateful and thankful to the Dynamo Dash organization and leadership, Victor and Laura, to have put this together. There was no agenda other than let's talk, let's meet, and I think that will continue. So more news to come on that, but some leadership there to try to get people together, get us in a room, whether we agree or disagree with each other, and talk about the greater good, which is promoting the sport. So that's what's on my mind, and I'll keep you updated on how that develops, for better or worse. So we've got to go. Laura, a final word before we say adios.
I did want to mention, I saw this just prior before us going live about, I've seen it in now 2 outlets. I saw it first on Glenn Davis's Twitter or X, however you want to call it, about a possible player, a Czech player, Andre Linger, coming in. He's a midfielder, of being signed in the next few days to the Houston Dynamo. So just want to leave you guys with that. He currently plays for Slavia Prague, and it's in the Czech Republic. And he is 26 years old, midfielder. So, and the amount the rumored amount is quite big. So it's going to be interesting if that does it does happen.
Materialize. Okay, we'll keep up with that. Victor, what's the last word for you as we wrap up?
Cheers to another weekend of good soccer, or another week of good soccer, I should say. There's a lot of games. I said it, international games, World Cup qualifying. Let's get to them.
Let's get to them. And also, thank you, Victor and Laura, not only for this podcast, but for all your work on our first Dynamo, I should say Houston Dash broadcast in Espanol on Deportes Nation. So all the home games, you can hear them, you can see part of them as well through or on Deportes Nation. So we invite you to be a part of it. So we've got to go. So thank you to our production team. Thank you to Laura. Thank you to Victor. And more importantly, friends, thanks to all of you that take the time to watch us, to listen to us, and to tolerate at least some of us, at least this old man. So on behalf of all of us, thank you for watching and listening. Until next time, when we bring you this that we call the Soccer Tejas podcast.